Okay, what time is it over there? You look so cozy.
It is. It's 9 p.m. Getting towards 9. So yeah,
we're the last stop before bed.
You are, exactly.
Yeah. Thanks for staying up late for us.
Yes, thank you so much.
Welcome to the ZuLoo Poodcast, where we talk all things poop, toilets and sanitation. Through insightful news, impact stories and quirky humour, we aim to discuss and highlight the critical role toilets play in flushing poop out of our lives, the impact toilets have, or lack thereof, on the health and wellness of humanity, and what ZuLoo is doing to help solve the current global sanitation crisis. This episode of the ZuLoo Poodcast is sponsored by ZuLoo Humanitarian, a non-profit organization committed to delivering sustainable sanitation, clean water, and hygiene solutions to underserved communities around the globe. Head to zuloo.org to learn more. All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the ZuLoo Poodcast. We are so happy to have you with us. Darin, it's wonderful to see you.
Good to see you.
What's new in your world?
Well,
since the last time we chatted.
Well, we've been watching this ant come toward us. We're wondering if we should...
He's looking for snacks and they want to kill him.
Yeah, Trevor had a hammer out ready to hit him, but...
I intervened. He's going to be okay. He'll live to see another day.
He's going to be good. So we'll just watch him. We'll let you know updates throughout the show.
Ant watch.
You know. But super excited. We met with Dominic from the UN, the Sanitation and Hygiene Fund.
Yes.
From Geneva.
Yes.
Which is obviously UN capital of the world, right? So super excited to see all the things he's doing, and great guy, great interview.
It was a really good interview, really fun to chat with him. So without further ado,
let's get into it.
Let's do it. Dominic O'Neill, thank you so much for joining us on the ZuLoo Poodcast today. We're delighted to have you here. You are joining us from Geneva, correct?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, what time is it over there? You look so cozy.
It is. It's 9 p.m. Getting towards 9. So yeah,
we're the last stop before bed.
You are, exactly.
Yeah. Thanks for staying up late for us.
Yes, thank you so much. Dominic, we are going to get into the Sanitation and Hygiene Fund, your work there. But to start, we always want to hear from our guests kind of your background and what led you into the sanitation space.
Yeah, so actually I've been working in and on sanitation since I did my degree in university, which was in environmental health. And I got an interest in environmental health in Africa, in Asia, in the less developed countries. And I did my bachelor's dissertation on environmental health in Zimbabwe. So I really started to look at why the issue is different there. So that's a few decades. I don't want to say quite how many. And then, the turning point for me was when I was looking at different work experience I could get. And I actually hitchhiked into the Rwandan refugee camps during the middle of that crisis. I had some friends working there, and I was looking at what's happening on sanitation. And it was just as there was a cholera epidemic kicking off. There was the main refugee camp there was called Banaka. It was 500,000 people. It was one of the biggest camps at the time that had been seen.
So wait, you were hitchhiking. Does your mother know you were doing this? That's what I don't want to know. Okay.
Nobody knew. I was 24, and I didn't want to worry anybody. This was all before phones, so I literally hitchhiked on 737s and then on a UN plane and then in the back of somebody else's Land Rover because they were closed off for security for good reason.
Right.
And I went.
You didn't seem to bother you, right? That you might lose your limbs or something, right?
No, that was the other side of my career is looking for that adventure, the excitement, as well as that being in the context of sanitation. And I saw that there was lots of people running around trying to deal with the medical emergency that cholera brought about. A few people looking at water supply, nobody looking at sanitation. And we all learned this back in London in 1820 that it was it was the shit that was infecting the water, causing, because of no sanitation. And so, ever since then, I've had this passion that sanitation slips through the cracks. It gets overlooked. It's just not sexy. It doesn't attract the investment, the interest that it should, until there's a cholera outbreak, when everybody's interested in it for a few weeks, and then it goes away again. And that was 30 years ago. So it's been a journey for more than 3 decades into sanitation for me.
Yeah, we're still trying to make it sexy, but it's a long road,
It is, yeah.
Well, and I wonder, Dominic, you've been, like you said, a few decades, we won't say how many, you've been in this space, you've been on the ground, you've seen the effect that a lack of sanitation and hygiene has on personal health, community health. And we all know this. We all know that the basis of health is hygiene and sanitation. Why do you think the world has been so slow to put the amount of energy and effort and funding behind these very basic needs, as opposed to, vaccines, which are also very important? But it seems like this does get so overlooked. Is it just that it's a taboo topic and we don't like to talk about shit? Or do you think there's, what have you noticed in your years in sanitation?
I think there's 2 sides to that. There is definitely a taboo. And, those of us in the shit industry, we talk about shit. We talk about menstruation, and people go red. They look down and they say, oh, when they're going to stop talking about it. So that is definitely a large part of it. The other part that I've come to realize since being and looking in the Sanitation and Hygiene Fund, okay, what does it take to bring in more investment, is that the types of sanitation we've been looking at have not been investable enough. And that means that you've got 2, putting it very simply, you've got sewered systems which go to communities, customers who will pay, and people will invest in those. No problem at all. A lot of the capital infrastructure investment goes into sewered systems. And then you've got the work that most of the sort of development work over the last 20 years, which was to end open defecation. Mm-hmm. And you made great strides in that in India and other places. But that was the most basic form of sanitation, and it's not investable. It has to be, it's very small scale. It doesn't create an investment opportunity. And I'm not talking anything like telecommunications. I'm just talking about a system that delivers the solution of safely managed sanitation, but can attract public and private sector investment. And that's the area that we've zoned in on, is how to make the uninvestable investable, not profitable. And sanitation is not profitable. It's a basic public service. But, in the SHF, we worked out that it has to be run on business terms. There has to be, you have to look at, how do you create jobs in this? How can you invest in the sanitation value chain, especially in non-sewered sanitation? Mm-hmm. And, we're all shit people. It was actually Paramaya at the World Bank who led Swachh Bharat, who said he knows that 80%, between 70 and 80% of the Indian population will never live at the end of a sewered pipe. Mm. And so the solution there needs to be, so what is the option? You can't invest in simple pit latrines. They are part at the household level, but that's not safely managed. Mm-hmm. You need to invest in the whole sanitation chain. So that was a long answer to the question, but partly the taboo, partly that we haven't been able to create investment opportunities to attract in the finance, capital investment, and operational expenditure that it needs.
And that is, I'm guessing, that is where SHF comes in. And you guys, it says on your site that you are a catalyst organization who can help fund kind of these boots on the ground projects. You guys aren't the ones actually going into communities and building toilets and sanitation solutions, but you are funding the organizations and projects that are actually doing that. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I can give you an example of our work in Kenya. We're 4 years old, so we came into this with a blank sheet of paper to say the challenge is not enough investment going into sanitation. So how do we respond to that? We were actually designed to be something like the global fund of, right, what is the vaccination solution in sanitation? And as we looked at it and looked at a lot of the work, the fantastic work that's gone on, we realized we needed to look at other sectors that also had investment issues, but managed to turn it around. And the sector that gave us most inspiration was actually the off-grid energy sector. And what happened there? And I know I've been in development many years in many different countries, Sierra Leone and Yemen and different places. And we spent a lot of time looking at how to bring in the mega projects, to bring in the energy, electrical infrastructure, the power lines. That discussion within a few years completely changed to actually you've got this small scale off-grid technology, solar-based micro dams, meso dams, and it completely changes the proposition where you can have communities coming together, villages, towns coming together, taking control of their own energy needs in a much more investable proposition and easy to manage, particularly in fragile states where maintaining a massive energy infrastructure, it's just too difficult.
Hey friends, it's Jocelyn with ZuLoo. I want to share something that's really stuck with me after doing this podcast for the past few years. I feel like I've lived these stories, listening to what so many women and families go through every single day. As a mom with 2 young daughters, it hits me on a completely different level. Imagine having to wake up before dawn and risk assault just to find a private place to go to the bathroom. For 673 million people, that's not hypothetical. That's daily life. And for so many girls, the lack of a safe, clean toilet means they drop out of school once they reach puberty. Just trying to manage something as basic as hygiene ends up costing them their education and their future. That's why ZuLoo Humanitarian is doing this work, building safe, sustainable toilets and clean water solutions for families who need them most. It's not just about sanitation. It's about dignity, safety, and giving girls a real chance. And here's the part that gets me. You can change that for a family. Just $350. That's less than $1 a day. You can fund a toilet for up to 7 people. If this speaks to you at all, please go to ZuLoo, spelled ZuLoo.org/give. That's ZuLoo.org/give. It really does make a difference.
So we often talk about, and many of our board members went through that transition. They finance off-grid energy. So we're saying, what happened there? They came in with a new technology, a new paradigm for delivering energy, which was off-grid. And so that's like non-sewered sanitation. And they created investable opportunities. They worked out what's the financial package around it. So you needed scale. You can't have one village. You actually need 100 villages, so you get 100,000 people. So you get a core enough to make a viable investment. Now that's where the similarities end, because sanitation, as we know, is very, very complex. Mm-hmm. You then get into the safe disposal, the whole value chain. But there are a lot of similarities in terms of the off-grid nature and coming in with a different investment paradigm for sanitation than either simply building a household latrine and worrying about when that gets full later and what happens to it, or just putting in the mega infrastructure, which in many cities, in any case, it's too late. Mm-hmm. If that infrastructure isn't there. And I have to say, the non-sewered, the off-grid sanitation solution is actually very applicable to the global north as well as the global south, where the capital investment required to maintain or to expand those systems is massive, and people are looking for cheaper solutions. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of this, South Africa's led a lot of this work, both from the technological perspective and the legal framework required. And we're really trying to learn from their example and take it into Kenya. But using Kenya as an example of what we do, we've worked with the government to help them assess the market value of their sanitation. Again, we're not talking profit, but working out, what's the value of the sanitation chain, the value chain? Where can we get people interested at investing in the transportation, in the safe disposal? Is there some climate finance attached to the mitigation of methane? So that's the approach we're taking. And yes, sometimes we work through NGOs, but increasingly we're working with SMEs who are in the social sectors and are interested in moving into sanitation. Mm-hmm. So it's really exciting, actually.
Yeah, so I mentioned previously today, we had an interview with a woman in South Africa who mentioned similar sentiments, that these big infrastructure, sewered sanitation systems, that they are just not going to work, either for cultural reasons or geographical reasons, or there's lots of reasons why they don't work. Yeah. I think for a lot of us in the West, that is the only solution we can comprehend, because that's all we know. And we are a very flush it and forget it society. We never think about what happens once it's out of our toilets. But, what she called dry sanitation, these dry sanitation solutions that are much more localized and can be kind of customized for these villages, communities, informal settlements, that is where we need to focus our time and effort, because there are just too many reasons why the sewered solutions are not a solution at all.
Well, and the fecal sludge issue, like how do you treat it and what do you do with it, right? And that seems to be the main driver. Is that what you're referring to as non-sewered sanitation, Dominic, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's a whole range of technology. The most common non-sewered is, the transportation, the sort of vacuum pump of shit from households, the transportation, and depositing that into a centralized fecal sludge plant. It's interesting, in Uganda, somebody had come along and thought, right, we need non-sewered sanitation. Let's build these plants all over the place. But they hadn't looked at the value chain to make sure that the shit was being transported safely to these plants. So they've done half the job. But there's other technology at much lower scale as well, nature-based solutions, water filtration beds. And that's the other thing. I do believe that there's such a range of technology that's coming through, which may surprise us, given that humans have been shitting since day one. And only now we're coming to the realization that, there's all of this new technology. Some of it's very high tech and expensive. That's used in the Swiss Alps because they can't transport it. Some of it can be very low tech. And what I think we talk about next generation sanitation, which is non-sewered in nature, but that it's climate resilient, because we know if there's a flood or if there's a drought, the sanitation system tends to fail first. It's either washed away in a flood, or if it dries up and it's based on a water-based system, then it doesn't work. So, we're sort of advocating for non-sewered in nature, water efficient. So that plays into the water security agenda, super important in South Africa, super important everywhere, actually. So where you can, and they've been trialing a lot of closed-loop water systems. So it's filled at once. So the user gets a flush experience. Because I know in a lot of the Cape Flats in South Africa, they've insisted that they have a flush experience. And that's part of the post-apartheid legacy of we want the same living standards as everybody. Mm-hmm. So, and this is where sanitation is so unique in terms of the social, cultural norms and history, and it isn't one size fits all. But by creating the conditions and the opportunities for investment, we believe the market will bring a lot of those different technologies based on what people are used to, what they can afford, what works from the climate perspective in terms of the amount of available water, what local materials are available. It's really got to be a locally generated solution. And actually it could, once this idea, it hopefully takes off in the large countries like India, I think you'll see a rapid evolution in technology. And you're starting to see that happening now. coming out of mainly of South Africa, some of the higher technology coming out of China as well. But even countries in the US, in some of the more remote communities who are off-grid, for both water supply and sanitation, looking at how these off-grid systems can provide a satisfactory service.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what's the most promising technology that you're seeing out there being developed that gives you the most hope?
It's the solutions that are that are water efficient. That, I think, is going to be the determining factor. So either a closed loop system or a dry system, if people are happy with that. Or the systems that can reuse the wet component, the urine, or any flushed water. Again, that's cultural. Some people are not prepared to use that. Some people are very happy to use that. So I think, I mean, in the last 6 months, I've seen a lot of this technology in Kenya. The nicest one was definitely the reed bed system. It's calm, it's quiet. It looks like a botanical garden, and it's a treatment plant. That really, and it's serving about 100 homes. It's all
where's
nature.
Where's that one?
That's
one?
just outside Nairobi, about half an hour outside Nairobi.
Okay.
It's scalable. It's wonderful. It's actually the technology I studied in my master's in terms of, all it requires are plastic tiles so that the reeds can float. And they do the work. So it's not necessarily, a high volume system, but it's certainly one of my favorite. I mean, the work they're doing in South Africa.
What's that one called? What's that one called again?
It's flow system. I'll have to find the name. We went to see as an entrepreneur. Again, a really interesting story. He was working in technology, got a bit bored of being in the office. Spoke to a guy in Spain who had the IP for these tray beds, and they've opened up an operation in Kenya. It's a flow bed system, and they're actually selling that not just to residential communities, but they're selling it to hotels who want an off-grid system and a nice one who've got limited space, and they can put it as part of the garden. For their own wastewater treatment.
Hey friends, it's Jocelyn with ZuLoo. I want to share something that's really stuck with me after doing this podcast for the past few years. I feel like I've lived these stories, listening to what so many women and families go through every single day. As a mom with 2 young daughters, it hits me on a completely different level. Imagine having to wake up before dawn and risk assault just to find a private place to go to the bathroom. For 673 million people, that's not hypothetical. That's daily life. And for so many girls, the lack of a safe, clean toilet means they drop out of school once they reach puberty. Just trying to manage something as basic as hygiene ends up costing them their education and their future. That's why ZuLoo Humanitarian is doing this work, building safe, sustainable toilets and clean water solutions for families who need them most. It's not just about sanitation. It's about dignity, safety, and giving girls a real chance. And here's the part that gets me. You can change that for a family. Just $350. That's less than $1 a day. You can fund a toilet for up to 7 people. If this speaks to you at all, please go to ZuLoo, spelled ZULOO.org/give. That's ZULOO.org/give. It really does make a difference.
And the other thing that's, I think, really interesting in Kenya is that they're about to change and hopefully introduce a law that new housing settlements, and they've done the same law in South Africa, have to have consideration for non-sewered sanitation first. Because they know the sanitation systems they have, they're expensive, they can't be rolled out. If that law comes in with a standard, it'll set the investment conditions for a lot of expansion. And these will still be for households and communities that can afford to pay. What we're then working out is once you've got enough people who are prepared to pay for this technology, how do we get that? How do we bring in the poorer communities through subsidies, and through different schemes, rather than isolating the poorest communities, saying you can only have a pit, and that's the only system you can ever aspire to. Yeah. So we do have to think about those lowest income households. But I personally believe we're on the verge of a revolution of this technology. I would say that because that's what we're pushing for. But I think given everything we're seeing around the world, in developed and the least developed countries, there's a real willingness to do sanitation differently.
Great.
I think
and so,
sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm taking us off topic. So if your question is still on this, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask how maybe if you would just mind mentioning how Sanitation Hygiene Fund, how it plays a role. I mean, does it do a grant, or is it a lead investor, or are you more like a matchmaker trying to match up? How does that process play out in real life?
Yeah, so we're part of the UN, so we can't be an investor. We're called a fund. We're probably more like a facility, a support facility. But our business model is based around initial analysis. We call it the SANIMAT, the Sanitation Market Maturity Analysis. That we've developed with a guy called Guy Hutton, who's probably one of the leading sanitation economists. And we've now got a picture of, in Kenya and Uganda, where principal countries, of the market supply requirements and market demand, the business environment needs, the policy needs, and who can finance. So from that, we get a plan as to how we can add value. We come in as a small partner with a little bit of catalytic funding that could be deployed through technical assistance to the government. In Kenya and in East Africa, we've got a sanitation enterprise incubator. Not that we want to be doing that everywhere, but we need to learn what does it take to either create or convert SMEs into sanitation providers. Well, we are working with the financiers in Nigeria. We're trying to get the Development Bank of Nigeria, which is the premier development bank in the country, to do this work on startups to help them understand what's the potential of the sanitation economy in Nigeria, with a massive population about to get larger, and really making sure that the government know what policy framework they need in place, looking at Kenya and South Africa, what's the technology available and appropriate, and how do we incentivize and incubate the business environment.
Dominic, you
thank you.
Spend a lot of your time dealing with policy and organizations and technologies and systems, but bringing it down to the human everyday level. I'm curious what you've seen in communities where sanitation and hygiene are introduced, and the ripple effect that has on a community, on a family.
Yeah. Well, this is all, it sounds quite high level. It really came down to earth when we visited Kisumu about a year ago. There is a dynamic small SME there called Fresh Life. They're doing amazing work. They operate a vacuum truck service, and they also they design and build flood-proof toilets.
We've had them on the show. Yeah.
Well, and so we went around with them doing it on their vacuum truck on a vacuum truck day. And that's what we mean by, the market-based approach, looking at the supply and demand. The CEO, Verish, is employing about 15, 20 people who wouldn't have otherwise been working on financially sustainable terms, delivering a service. It's an affordable service. People are happy. We spoke to the communities there. They feel confident, and this is the same in many countries, especially in South Africa. You talk to the women, and they say, "This means I can go to the toilet at night in my home or in my little compound, and I don't suffer sexual violence. I don't get raped. And a woman in South Africa said that just as a matter of fact, I don't need to leave where I know I'll be raped at night. Yeah. Now I don't want to, stigmatize, Africa. That doesn't happen everywhere, but especially in these dense, informal settlements, that's a very real issue for many women who are vulnerable and exposed if they have to leave the homestead. So, we saw, Vera, the CEO, she's creating jobs. She's using the best available technology. She's looking for investment. And that's exactly the transformative change we want to bring about. The technology is right because it's safely managed. It isn't just, a pit latrine getting full and then people wondering, well, what to do about it, because you can't build next door. It's a very space confined district that they work in. It has to be emptied. It has to be managed safely, so to keep the bacteria and the pathogens away, and ideally reused. So that was a really good example. It struck home that, right, if we can have this, and what's really important as well in that settlement, it's an informal settlement. In the local government, that settlement doesn't exist on any map. Everybody knows it does. It's been there for decades, but that means they they would never get the right to put in a sewer pipe, to get the land demarcated to make an investment. So for those where land tenure is insecure, this off-grid system works perfectly. And quite frankly, there are many large parts of many large cities in Africa and other countries where you have that insecurity of land tenure. This system works and gives people safely managed sanitation as a solution.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
We're already at 3 minutes away from our finish line. So it always goes so much faster than I think it will. But Dominic, I'm wondering if, in these last few minutes that we have, if you can tell us, what does success look like for the next 5 to 10 years for us? I can't, for some reason, that acronym is really
SHF. Yeah.
SHF.
Success for us is that we don't have to grow as an organization, that we're able to identify national partners, national banks, governments, local businesses, that we can work with them, explain the approach, explain the mechanics, the dynamics, the analysis, what is required to build their sanitation economy and to support them to allow it to flourish. This isn't just a nice ideal. This is the only business model that's going to work in the current aid climate, the ODA climate. There is less ODA going around. International organizations need to be leaner. The governments do have expenditure. The development banks do have expenditure. The national development banks, like the Bank of Rwanda, the Development Bank of Nigeria, they are actively looking for investment opportunities. So we're trying to match them all together. So for us, this is a sustainable way of financing. We can bring in climate resilient technology, water efficient technology, deal with gender inequity so that women are safe at night. It's just a win-win. And if we had another half hour, I'd tell you about our really innovative work in menstrual health, but that'll have to be for next time.
That was one of the things that I thought, I really hope we get to touch on this. So this just means we have to have you back.
Yes. And my colleagues know we have a really exciting offer called Capital M, along the same innovative market-based approaches, and looking at sustainable products that will meet the needs of the hundreds of millions of girls and women each day who don't have access to a product. So we think we have the answer, but you'll have to get us back to talk about that.
You're leaving us on a cliffhanger. That's the right way to do it.
Yeah, tune in next time.
Tune in next time.
Part 2. We'll have part 2.
Well, Dominic, we so appreciate your time, your service, your expertise, and sharing it with us and our listeners. And we would absolutely love to have you back.
Dominic O'Neill, great interview.
Yeah, that guy's everywhere. I saw his LinkedIn. He's in Nigeria right now. He's all over the place, that guy. So, if you, I don't know how the UN works, but he's the guy. If you're doing sanitation,
yes,
on a big scale, like countries, planet. Dominic.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who doesn't totally understand how the UN works. It sounds really fancy, and it's in a bunch of government movies, like spy movies,
Sure.
and it has
got
all
the
the
cool
flags.
blue helmets,
They have blue helmets?
They got the blue helmets. They got UN, the peacekeeper guys, they all get the cool blue, you know what I'm talking about. Oh, well, we could do a whole other episode on the blue helmets, They get the blue flag and they got the UN. You ever seen
the model UN episode of Parks and Rec, that's as far as it goes for me.
Okay, anyway. So, I'll have to ask Dominic if he's got a blue helmet stashed somewhere. But yeah, they that way you can't shoot at them because they're UN, right? They got the big UN flag and they got big UN painted on the truck.
All right. Well,
And
everyone just go out and get yourself a blue helmet then.
I know. What if everybody wore blue helmets? It's like, well, we're all peaceful. We're all kumbaya.
Right. This one's going off the rails. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
This episode of the ZuLoo Poodcast has been sponsored by ZuLoo Humanitarian, advancing dignity, health, and opportunity through sanitation. Learn more at ZuLoo.org.
Thank you for listening to the ZuLoo Poodcast. Follow us on social media and visit ZuLoo.org to learn more about how ZuLoo is helping tackle the global sanitation crisis through toilets, clean water, and hygiene solutions. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe, like, comment, and share. And if you'd like to support our mission, visit our website to learn how you can help change lives through better sanitation.